I wanted to briefly go over how I draw trend lines, um, and I'm only going to do the upward or trending uptrend line in this example. So first thing I like to do is change my chart to a line chart. I can see visually that the trend on this is heading up for the most part. So that's not really that hard for me to physically see that there's higher lows, excuse me, from the dips at the bottom of these, and pretty much higher highs going on onto here. So see these higher highs and low and higher lows as it goes up. So it's an uptrend. And I can almost, since I've been doing this for a while, I can almost see a perfect line at the bottom of those things. So if I was to draw a ray like this, I could see that there's almost, and I have, once again, I also have my magnet on right here. That's really helpful. I like to use the weak magnet. I don't really like the strong magnet. And that will help my line um, stick to the endpoints or the closing parts of the candles. So you see that other dot I'm dragging along here. And so I probably would pick this one. But just to be sure, I like to change it to a line chart sometimes. And so I'll go in here. Let me do this. I'll go down here to these three dots in the corner, lower right hand corner, and then click on chart type right here. And then I'll click on line chart. I made it one of my favorites. So if you haven't made it a favorite, you can click it down here. If you want to make it a favorite, you hold it and click the star right over here to the right to make it a favorite. Right now, since it's already a favorite, it's asking me to remove from favorites. But say for instance, if I just clicked area chart right just now. Let's say if I want to make this area chart a favorite, I would go here and click the star to add it to my favorites. But yeah, so now I have a line chart. And what I like to do is double click the line. And then for the line chart, I want to set my source for the movement of the chart and what the chart is showing me to the low of that particular uh, price. So now every pivot on here is the low price. Every tick actually of time here is a 5 minute chart. So as it ticks, if I do it on 15, you might see it tick even better. But as it ticks at the bottom down here, the time, um, every tick of that is the actual low price during that time period. So it's a 15-minute time period on this chart. And so this line chart is showing the low price at that time. So anyways, go back to the 5 minute that I was going to draw this line on. Now the line can be drawn on several time frames. It does not have to be the 5 minute chart or anything. It could be the chart you're kind of monitoring. But sometimes you can see the trend even better or the actual lower points on a lower time frame because the higher time frames like kind of average and show during that particular time frame what the low was. But when you drill down into smaller increments of time, you might be able to see even lower lows in that movement. So I'm going to draw a ray. Once again, I have my magnet on, so it sticks at those little pivot points. Click that, and then I'm going to go to this point right here. And you can almost see that these other points look like they kind of touch it. It's good to have at least 2 touches, the minimum of 2 touches, but three is a really good number, and the more touches the better, or the more even prices that are closer to it the better. So it doesn't have to exactly touch on the line itself. And this line is just for me to observe the price. It's really not a line that proves or that the market actually feels or changes the price of the Bitcoin or whatever you're monitoring in any way. And so, yeah, so that's how I draw my trend lines. And one little extra I'll add in is that I'll click that line a lot of times and then I'll hit these 3 dots at the end. Sometimes you have to hit it twice if your screen is smaller or something like that. And then I'll lock it right here. I'll use the lock. And what that does, it just keeps it from being accidentally dragged or moved. And I used to have a lot of trouble with that in the beginning, where I would draw lines or draw things and then I accidentally move them and I just can't remember where they were. And I had to keep clicking undo and going back to try to figure it out. So for this line, what I would do is click the three dots and set an alert on that line. And what I'm looking for it to do is to be less, the price to be less than that where that line is going through. And I want it to trigger this alert once per bar close. So when it closes below that line, or it's less than that line when it closes in this particular time period, because I'm drawing it on a 5-minute chart. So on a 5-minute chart, when it closes below or less than that line I drew, which is the ray, then send me an alert. And a lot of times I'll name my alert. So I might call this BTC, and I'm going to just call this a short, because I'm saying it may be going back down. If it starts closing below that uptrend, that means it might be a sign of the trend actually reversing. And so I'm going to create that alert. And when you create an alert on a line, you should see like a little timer on there. So you see this little timer right here on there. I'm using the crosshairs. Don't look at my dot. Look at the crosshair that I drew on the screen. The cross line here, right here, that little dot is that little clock means that this, and it's colored in the same color as whatever you put the alert on. So it's saying that there's an alert on that particular line right there. And so at the end of it all, I'll change my chart back to normal candles, and I can see, wow, I drew a nice trend line right underneath those candles really easily. Another thing I would do too is sometimes set the line chart back to close. So double click that and set this back to close. And so whatever the price closed at during each of those time periods is where the line will show now. So your trend line may not look correct when the line chart says close, but because it's I have an uptrend and I'm trying to track the low prices along that uptrend to see when it breaks those lower highs. That's why I set my line chart to low, to draw the line on there. Yep, and that's it. Thank you.